Ones.
Welcome back, Enkindled Ones.
Oh, it's my first time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would be wrong to welcome you back.
Well, I guess it would be in the spirit of the thing, though, since you, rise from your grave at the beginning of the whole game.
Yeah. Time is convoluted here on the stream.
As in Dark Souls 3.
All right, we're audible. We're not visible, but that's intentional.
Okay.
Or at least expected. The controller works. The coffee is cold, but it's supposed to be because it's iced coffee. So everything's going well. So, do you want to introduce yourself? How do you want to be known in these environs?
I can be Adam, as I am in most environs.
The first man. Okay. You have been on the podcast. Those who are tuning in because they enjoy the ETAO podcast, you'll remember Adam from extensive seminars about Persona.
Yeah, I think we clocked almost 6 hours on Personas 3 through 5. So
yeah. And we did not talk about 4 as much as we perhaps ought, and that was on me because I hadn't played 4 at the time. I am currently playing 4, so you'll have to come back and finish the job sometime.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it entirely through this Dark Souls 3 stream. It'll be the only topic.
It's not like unlikely. So the reason you're here, Adam, besides the fact that you're a stand-up cat, is that you didn't love this one. This particular Souls that we're currently playing, and I think the reasons you didn't love it are actually super interesting. So the goal here is not to have the great debate as to whether Dark Souls 3 slaps or not. I don't, who cares, right? What I think is interesting
I think the jury's already in on that, and I am decidedly in the minority there.
So fair enough, right? But the thing that's more interesting from my point of view is like why it connected with some people who love the other games and why not others. So we're in an area that's probably one of the better ones to talk about that.
Yeah, I think we're actually about to do, I figured for Adam it made the most sense to go the quote-unquote nostalgia route, because we're going to go do Aceros, which would then lead us to Archdragon Peak. And in both cases, there's heavy callbacks to the first one.
And the heavy callbacks are probably where the rubber meets the road as far as why this worked for some people, but not others. Where do I meet you bonfire-wise?
Probably it would make the most sense. And Adam, have you finished this game?
I have not. I've put 34 hours into it according to Steam. I think...
Will he be able to join us? That's what I'm trying to
So his
figure
characters are MIA, so he will not be able to join us today. Maybe in the future.
Okay, that's what I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no, I will be spectating because I don't know exactly where my characters were, but now they are not anywhere. They are completely gone. So,
oh no.
In the true spirit of FromSoft games, I guess they have been lost forever.
It's more in the spirit of Yoko Taro games.
There you go. So we want to meet at Dancer of the Boreal Valley.
Okay, let's do that.
That is under the high wall.
Yeah, I was going to say that's further back toward the beginning of the list than one might expect. Yeah.
So I should say that I have not finished this game personally. I don't remember precisely how far I got. I know that I got to the Abyss Watchers and Farron Keep, and then saw some other stuff, but I couldn't tell you precisely where I fell off the train.
Mm-hmm.
But I have watched a full video Let's Play probably twice now from Dan Floyd over at Playframe, and as well as I am an avid Bonfire Side chat listener. So I don't have the firsthand experience, and I would never claim expertise, but I have at least some familiarity with what you guys are going to be doing.
Yeah, sure. You won't need the basics of what's happening explained.
Yeah, when I realized that I was not going to finish the game myself, I just went ahead and watched other people do it because I was still curious, even if I wasn't actually enjoying it terribly.
Yeah.
That was I actually really appreciate playthroughs, all the more so when people don't talk through them. I had that exact experience with The Last of Us. I realized I was not going to slog through it for as little as I was enjoying the narrative.
Mm.
So I was able to watch. I was able to watch someone else play through it.
You had. We talked a bit about your friction with the last game. I should also apologize to the viewer for last time when we lost Lucio's audio for I was going to be kind to us and say the bulk of the stream, the whole stream. So we're double checking that that's not the case this time. Sorry about that. But we had a really good discussion about your friction with The Last of Us and about blackface for some reason and all kinds of stuff. So we're gonna make sure we keep the good stuff this time. Thanks again for those who are sticking with this long play, despite the fact that it's it's us learning how to do one of these.
All right, so here we are.
I
guess if you're spectating, Adam, you're going to be about what, like 5 seconds behind us or so?
Thereabouts.
Yeah.
Probably. I'll be current on the conversation. So unless I am trying to do color commentary about the quality of you guys' combat style, I hope we'll be able to have a coherent conversation.
You're gonna have this Cassandra like thing where you're gonna hear us go and then you're gonna know why a few seconds later. But
yeah, I've actually I don't know if this will feed into what we're going to talk about today, but I just finally started the In Defense of Dark Souls 2 video.
Oh, fun.
So if nothing else, like I think having a conversation, as you say, not about whether or not it slaps, it does, but about like what's valuable or not so valuable at the games, I think is probably. Oh, there's a thing over here. I forgot. It's probably one of the best things about all of the different From Software games. Like even in the similarities across the board, everyone feels like just a little different.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see that with Dark Souls 2. It's actually watching that video is sort of making me rethink how I've been playing 2 and kind of the incorrect assumptions I've made about how to approach it.
Yeah, 2 is probably my favorite Soulsborne game. I haven't played Sekiro.
Getting right into it, huh, dude?
I suppose. I don't think it's necessarily as good a game.
Behind Drew just went ham on this.
I did Leroy Jenkins, the Puss of Man. Yeah. That's not a Puss of Man. What is that?
I haven't been able to see a thing on the YouTube yet, so that may be an alarming thing to hear.
That's not. That's not
black screen.
That's not what you definitely want.
Yeah,
it's a black. But not seeing us.
Correct. Well, I'm not. I don't have the sound on the YouTube, but when I hit play, nothing happens. It says an error occurred. Please try again later. I assumed that was because you guys had not yet started.
Yeah, that was an incorrect assumption. So thank you for quality checking us. 1 sec. Please stand by. Your call is important.
Apologies to be the bearer of bad news.
No. Better for you to bear it than for it to be unbearable, I guess.
Our children are learning.
Too seldom is the question asked. Is our children learning? So maybe you just have the wrong link, because I can see it, and I think maybe I can even hear it. I'm going to check that
I guess maybe. It says a little Dark Souls 3 playthrough. One watching now, started streaming 6 minutes ago.
That's super weird. Have you tried refreshing?
Several times, yes.
Goofy.
Goofy
movie.
I don't exactly know what could be going on there, but I will revisit your Twitter for the links.
Yeah, that's a good point. Let me go to my Twitter and make sure I didn't tweet out the wrong Gold-earned link.
I mean, yeah, I am seeing it. I'm running in the back as so I'm watching you stand there while I fight this knight.
All right. Well, I'm revisiting the tab now, so let's see if anything happens.
I can for sure see it.
Yeah, getting an error again. Let me try it on Twitch. I don't like Twitch, but I will try it.
Yeah, it is important to be loyal to specific evil mega corporations, but not others, in my experience. No, you just mean you don't like the tool.
Yeah, no, I don't like the webpage very much. But now I can see you on Twitch, so clearly it is the superior tool, and I shall henceforth change allegiances.
Yeah, exactly. If this were Bloodborne, we would have like is Bezos the Vile Bloods, and then.
I can't even begin to map evil billionaires onto monstrosities from Bloodborne. That's not something I feel confident in doing.
Oh, that's as an aside, that's what I was trying to remember. So the Defense of Dark Souls 2 video, that was before Dark Souls 3?
Before 3 came out, yeah.
Okay. Because some of the stuff he was talking about with the health system in particular, I realized were also addressed in Dark Souls 3.
Most of the, I find that one of the reasons I wanted to do this and sort of start to get our heads straight about this one in particular is that a lot of what I would consider the sort of seminal criticism of the first 2 Dark Souls and Bloodborne predate the release of 3. So it's like, not that makes it obsolete or whatever, but it means there are things missing from the analysis that I do think are interesting,
Right. I mean, this right away is one of them. Like, look, you can drink an Estus while you're moving, and that definitely.
Right, that's different.
I mean, it's a small thing, but it's a huge thing in terms of like how I've been, like I said, approaching Dark Souls 2, because he points out that like the pacing of the first game. I guess I kind of expected something more like 3 from 2. Oh God! Oh, Puss of Man. Oh Lord.
boy.
Toxic.
Shimona.
Something where I'd be able to like move and heal at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
But what I should have been doing was approaching it more like
Woof.
either or.
You move, then you heal, then you heal, then you
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and so I came to the series through 1, which I think is probably the superior game, even if I ended up kind of getting more enjoyment out of 2. It's like, less elegantly crafted. But I liked the strategic, slow, almost turn-based defensive gameplay, which is part of the reason why I don't like 3 as much, is because you can't play that way anymore. They took armor out of the game.
So I'm curious. So where does that put Bloodborne on your list then? Is that like
It's fine.
hectic for you?
It's
fine.
fine.
Is fair. I was gonna say that's your approach. I could see how like fine would be a pretty generous.
I like Bloodborne more than I like Dark Souls 3 because I think it has a better. No. It has a stronger sense of identity and kind of more to like say to a player than I think 3 does. And it's cohesive, right? There isn't like all of this stuff that I think I know from Dark Souls 1 and 2 telling me to play it one way while the mechanics tell me to play it another way, which is an issue I had from 3. But I probably won't ever get all the way through Bloodborne, but I've enjoyed the time I spent with it. Also, RIP, guys.
Pour one out. Thank you. It won't be the last time. Those pusses of man, puss of men,
pusses of men.
Yes, thank you. Attorneys General. They're rough. No matter how far you get in, they're rough. I should really I should grab some fire buffs of some kind in order to. Yeah, let me actually pop back to.
Yeah, well, the Puss of Man and the first one you see with Udex Gundyr actually makes a really good point about some of where I feel the design didn't speak to me personally as much with Dark Souls 3 because they are made to be impossible to read. It's visual noise, so the difficulty is in, sort of like not knowing what you're looking at. And one of the things that I always really appreciated about the first 2, and really even Bloodborne, what I've played of it to a great degree, is that, even if you're not able to respond to it quickly enough, you can kind of always tell what you're in for, at least after the very first time you see something. And that felt less true of things like Puss of Man in this.
I swear to Velka that my goal here is not to moderate a debate, but do you feel the same, Luce? Having played this a whole bunch, do you feel like this stuff's unreadable?
I think the mistake we make a lot in discourse is assuming that like if we're in a debate, we're talking about who's right and wrong, and that's not the case. I feel like
for sure not.
That's a really good observation because I hadn't considered that because I have played this game so much that there's just ways in which I'm starting to like peek behind the veil, as it were, and so like
you're seeing the Matrix code.
The Puss of Man is actually a really good observation because he's right. They are really unreadable, and they're one of right now you just saw us die to one. It's funny to hear you say that because in the context of Udex Gundyr, they're different. I feel so like with Udex. You can actually still parry him once he goes into his Puss of Man phase. And the thing that's really funny about that is you're right that they're unreadable. They're a distraction, right? Like in kind of Dark Souls fashion, you have to like kind of approach the boss in this very sometimes specific way. Like a lot of the bosses, I don't know if the word gimmick is right, but there's certain ways in which fighting them is going to be a lot easier. With the Puss of Man, you shouldn't be watching the crazy black pus that's in your face, even though to your point, by design, it's kind of making you do that. If you watch Udex, you can still parry him in that form. And in fact, if you watch like, speed runners or, people who are fighting him, that they just do it with, ease because he's still got a similar moveset. And so, but in this case, it's the Puss of Man the Pussmen that you encounter out in the world are usually attached to like a simple hollow. And in that sense, like they're not really that easy to read. So
no, you're right. Like what would be the information for a standard, a classical, a prelapsarian Dark Souls enemy? Those things are basically feints, right? Like they're supposed to distract you. And that's one of the comparisons Bomber guy makes in that video toward the end. Spoilers for a piece of criticism is that Scholar of the First Sin, to him, geez, we're off to a bad start here. Scholar of the First Sin, and I think it's true of this game as well. Like one point of comparison would be the Japanese Mario Brothers 2. Like it assumes that you're fluent with the system and then like takes advantage of your expectations to mess with you.
Right.
And that's an experience that by its nature only makes sense if you're A, already deeply invested in Soulsdom, and B, pretty fluent in the system. It's inherently unwelcoming, which is one of the reasons I find it so interesting that you grokked this one first, because I mean that's probably more true of Scholar of the First Sin, which is literally a remix of one of the games, than it is of this. But I do think there's a sense in which this is a victory lap, is how we've talked about it before. And a sense in which, like, where the Soulsborne, you bet your boots I did, and then I fell down a hole.
Oh no!
Did I mention you don't come to this stream for skilled play? Because wowie zowie,
yes,
friends.
We're not Chase the Bro or what's the other guy?
Lobos. You're thinking?
Oh no, he's the runner. I think there's another guy who just does like invasions.
Oh sure, no. I don't tend to watch those. I should watch more of them. Lobos Jr. is he does like gimmicky runs a lot. My very favorite thing he ever did was he did Dark Souls. He did what he called an Olympic torch run in Dark Souls 2. So he had to have a torch in his left hand for the entire game, which meant he couldn't use a shield, obviously, but it also meant he could never roll in water. It was ludicrous, and it was great.
Everything Lobos does just sounds like it's made up, but I know that it's not.
He's a delight to watch.
Yeah.
So I lost my blob. We're off to a typically bleak start here.
Oh no.
It's all right. It's fine. It's fine. We'll do it live.
Interestingly,
go for it.
You brought up Scholar of the First Sin as something similar, like expecting you to know something. I have never played vanilla Dark Souls 2. I come to these games late, typically. So I've only played Scholar of the First Sin, and it was just Dark Souls 2 to me. So I didn't get any of that, sort of like, from the remix factor of it.
Right. A lot of it is extremely specific. I mean, it's just like, a guy used to jump out at you from the left, and now he jumps out at you from the right 3 seconds later. It's like stuff that will mess with you if you played the original. I think H-Bomb in that video actually sort of thinks that the placements in Scholar are inferior, but I think he says now that was just him being a hipster, and I think like he made his list of like his favorite games of the last 10 years, and like both Dark Souls 2 and Scholar of the First Sin were on it separately. What I mean?
I mean, that's interesting because I knew that things had changed, but I guess I didn't ever really consider. I mean, I knew Shrine of Amana got I think a pre-Scholar patch even for like the range.
Don't forget to come off the thing here.
Yeah. But
there's actually an Estus flask or bone chart up here, so.
Oh, it is something important, isn't it?
I could be wrong, but I thought I remembered it.
To the garden. It's an Estus shard. Yay. And boy, do I need it based on how I'm playing this fine day. This is the sense in which streaming, one of the senses in which streaming always makes me nervous is like, I'm not, like I play a lot of video games. I'm good enough to get through them, but I'm not good at video games. Capital GFV or GAV. So yeah, the internet is going to read me, I suppose.
Yeah, our dear friend, it's funny, the other day, our dear friend Ian was watching our video, and he leaned down to me and quietly said, "You're a lot better than Drew." I said, "Well, Drew plays a lot of games." It's like he doesn't really have the time to invest in like quote unquote getting good.
I am not a specialist in anything. Yeah, that is very true.
and I happen to be good at this game just because I've played it so much. It's not that I've like invested time into the combat or whatever. It's just by virtue of the fact that I've run through it so many times.
Well, we talked, one of the reasons we picked this game is you said that in quarantine you have, in your words old manishly, been revisiting games you've already played, right?
Yes.
So that in general, I think, is going to tend toward mastery at specific games. And there's not a dang thing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, specifically just because, and I don't know if either of you have found this in your lives where maybe you were under stressful or otherwise, distracted circumstances. But yeah, I have, for anyone who doesn't know, I have, a wife, I have 3 kids. And so they, especially right now, require a lot of, my attention and care. And so like, I still have Nier Automata sitting on here. And just by virtue of the fact that I'm so distracted with other things, it's kind of hard to like hone in and focus on something new.
Right.
And so this is just kind of a nice way to like relax my soft, mushy brain.
Right. See, if I have a skill as far as playing games, and that's debatable, then what that skill is grokking new game systems pretty quickly. You know,
Yeah.
I can become good enough at a new game faster, I think, than most. Good enough is, of course, itself quite subjective.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. I've been playing a little bit here and there of Celeste, and boy howdy, am I not nearly as good at you at that game.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like I'm still like, if you watched me play Celeste on stream, maybe you will someday, dear viewer. You wouldn't be impressed.
I have Caressing Tears, by the way. There's items you still need to get in the Toxic Swamp.
Oh yeah, I'll take your tears. Yeah, I want your tears.
I don't think there's anything you really need.
Come
but
cry on me. Do the tears cry on me?
Oh no, you don't. No, Caressing Tears is not a heal. I will heal you, but Caressing Tears is just to get rid of Toxic.
Oh sure, no, I don't have the status effect. I thought I got rid of the build-up. That's my mistake.
It does do that too, actually. But
Oh.
I just figured
It's fine. I'll go get
since
Toxic.
you're gonna get Toxic at some point anyway.
Oh, I thought I saw the item glow, but it was just some slugs. Case in point about how Drew is bad at video games. I mean, this is something about, like, not to make the stream a stream about streaming, but like, this is another thing where I this ties into something that I think we talked about last time and lost a little bit, that I was talking to Michelle about the other day, which is that social media serves a very different function, especially for the youngs now, than it did when we were youngers. Adam, you know,
We were young. By the way, is Hawkwood sign here?
no.
Okay, so then you did something wrong.
Dude, this is such a cursed playthrough for NPC assistance. It's fine. We've just screwed everything up. With the Henri thing, we just took a different path than we remembered. But
Oh no, I remembered. You just do it.
yeah, okay, sure. That was I'll take again. I Leroy Jenkins, but plot wise, no. But then like we did everything right, I think, for the Yorm Siegvard.
Yeah,
thing,
that was
but it just got bugged.
weird.
It's a cursed playthrough. But anyway, I was just saying, you know, very different. Like the point of LiveJournal was to spill your guts, right? To perhaps I think Lou said to have people feel sorry for you. The point of Instagram is to appear to be living an enviable lifestyle.
Yeah, it's the opposite. It's to have people feel
very much
envious.
the opposite. And I think there's like a connection to streaming there, because like, is the goal to like to a certain degree, the goal is of course to hang out with people, right? Or feel like you're hanging out with friends or whatever. But to a certain degree, it's like skilled play is prized very highly, you know?
I mean, people build whole careers off it.
Yeah, and I mean, I understand that esports are a thing. Like, you don't have to draw me a map, but it's like most play is not skilled play. And, you know, like I personally, the ones I like watching, I mean, I don't think Dan Floyd is an especially amazing player at most games. You're watching because he's an animator, right? Like, he's there because he has domain knowledge, and you're going to learn something by watching him play it. And it's really fun to watch him react to stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's part of the reason why I think I have found his FromSoft playthroughs particularly illuminating, is because he is not approaching it from a technical play angle, or as a character action game expert, but as a committed and relatively charismatic every man kind of player, every person kind of player.
Yeah.
And so it is a reasonable substitute for me playing something myself. If, like in Dark Souls 3 or Sekiro, I am unlikely to ever see all of it myself.
I got to drop down here, by the way.
Okay. It's a good point.
Sekiro is actually a really good example, because, like if we were to take your more generalized skill set, Drew, like you could have never finished that game, but you do in fact get good at games when you need to.
Well, but again, that's my skill set, right? Like, I'm never gonna like the boss rush thing in Sekiro that they're gonna release. I'm probably never gonna do that. Like, I'll try it, but
really? That's like I'm super excited for that.
I mean, I don't want to discount it, because From is very good at design. And it might be interesting.
You just went right in.
But in general,
You're
boss
Batman.
rush. I know, right? Man's mad.
Oh.
Ooh, those wide swings that cross a X, Y, Z, and Q axes.
Oh God, the poise.
We're good. His poise profits him nothing.
Good kill here.
Thanks, friend.
I miss poise.
Oh, that's an interesting one to talk about.
That was definitely a contentious point for this game. That's
talking about how systems work differently. So I had nothing to go on other than Jay being mad the first time I played, But I've actually
for context,
grown
we
to
had a
like.
friend who played through Scholar with me and a few others, and loved the heck out of especially the Dark Souls 2 DLC areas, which Luce has not seen yet, which are all great.
Yeah. They're amazing.
Bounced off this game real hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for him,
well, and he also you forgot to mention he exclusively would do strength builds. Like that's why he played these games.
Right? Yeah, no, totally. His plan in every FromSoft game is get your strength to like 60, and the rest of the stats are irrelevant.
Wow.
So that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, to that point, like so playing Dark Souls 1 and with a Dex build for our remastered playthrough that we did a while back and that we should finish, and then playing Dark Souls 2. So I actually liked the way that they took the poise system in this game in terms of like timing for certain attacks, because I feel like it's sort of, I mean, obviously the downside is that for people who were invested in building, poise builds, it kind of negates them a little bit. But what I liked is that it sort of rounded everything else out, because you play the first and second game and it's like, why would you do anything other than poise? Like I'm playing 2 now, and the ability to swing a giant weapon while having 100 poise or whatever, just it just outclasses Dex. I guess I should shut up now. So
no, that's fine. I mean, he ain't talking.
Consume King / Seath callback.
So this is such a good example, right? Like, I mean,
yeah, we're getting into it now for Adam.
Right. Yeah. Well,
Osiris is like it's actually almost. It's tougher to explain the differences than the similarities between Osiris and Seath, like in some ways.
The lack of crystals streaming off of him in every direction.
That's one thing. Yeah, that's a key point.
Oh, wait till we get into the fight.
Yeah, no, I was definitely aware of that, but and then the scale, of
right.
the model are the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
But they are pretty cosmetic, and I guess the other thing is that I guess unless I missed something really big in looking at this game, you don't know that this guy even exists until you walk into this room.
Yeah, he's a hidden boss.
Yeah. And like there's nothing about him anywhere. I mean, minimal information about him elsewhere in the game outside of this room, right? Like Seath is one of the like kind of big players in Dark Souls 1, and one of the things that I liked about Dark Souls 2 is that if you didn't play Dark Souls 1, you kind of don't miss out on a lot in Dark Souls 2.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it takes place a million years later.
Sure.
And it kind of explores similar ideas, themes, tones, aesthetics, mechanics, but narratively it is perhaps even too boldly its own thing.
Yeah.
Dark Souls 3 feels like it takes place after a 3-day weekend after Dark Souls 1. And that was massive step back for my personal taste.
Sure. No, that's super interesting, because I think this was exactly what people didn't like about Dark Souls 2 the first time around, was how much of a break there is. And it's, for me, the effect was actually really cool, because it means that it introduces this layer of proper dramatic irony, where you frequently remember things about why the world is the way it is that the characters don't, if you play Dark Souls 1. And that to me is actually really cool. The idea that they don't remember Solaire's name, but you do, right? Like that's neat. And there's a neat enough narrative excuse for it to be different in this, which is time is convoluted, everything is compressing, where everything old is new again. But it's like, what does Osiris mean to you when you discover him, if it's not a Seath callback? Because structurally, he's hidden in about the same way that Ornstein is hidden. It is almost like an off to the side. I mean, he doesn't fight that much like Seath.
To be clear, you're referring to the way that Ornstein is hidden in Dark Souls 2.
You're right. Jeez. Oh my God. We're playing too many of these games at the same time. Yes. In Dark Souls 2.
It's all relevant and it all comes together, but we just need to be specific, because otherwise.
Sure. Yes. That is what
because Ornstein is by no means hidden in the first game.
No, totally. No, I definitely meant Dark Souls 2. The solo Ornstein.
He's not even called Ornstein in Dark Souls 2.
He's called they're exactly. To Adam's point.
Good
luck. Adam's point, thank you. It's going to go badly. To Adam's point, he's called the Old Dragon Slayer. And he's Ornstein. He's very clearly Ornstein. But presumably no one in the world remembers that name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's certainly no indication that they do.
Yeah.
And that I could definitely see being disappointed with, if you were like, I wonder what happens now that the cycle has either been reinstantiated or broken.
Yeah.
But this kind of answers both of those questions by setting it so far in the future that it has been both many times.
Right.
And that I thought was a clever and unpredictable way to kind of take it, and it let them do, a bunch of stuff that you really couldn't do with a more direct follow-up where you keep revisiting the same locations. Because Dark Souls 2 has like 5 or 6 heavy metal album covers in it when you enter a new area.
Ooh, jeez. Okay, that went bad.
Gives it some distinct personality, I guess.
Yeah.
For my mileage, anyway. Sorry that went as badly as it did.
Yeah, no, I don't remember his movements at all. This is the interesting thing for me about Dark Souls 3. I mean, at the risk of being from Software Switzerland, I think all these games slap. And I don't think either of you are arguing otherwise, but like for me,
no, I've connected with all of them in different ways at this point. Yeah,
this one I enjoyed the hell out of when it came out, but I guess it just didn't stick as much. There's so much I don't remember. Adam, I was saying to Lucio an episode or two ago that might be mostly because there was just a Souls game every 11 months at that point, which was it was in that unprecedented period, maybe never to be repeated. Oh, you're probably closer to the boss, right?
I was gonna say I can either, if you want to rush to the boss, I'm right there. Otherwise, I can come to you if you feel like you need some help for the shortcut.
No, don't patronize me. I should be all right.
Wasn't being
famous last words.
Patronize me.
What are you gonna do? Crystal me to death with magic?
Said man shortly before being crystalled to death with magic. Ooh, jeez, with the thieves and oh boy, I'm not even gonna get crystalled to death because I'm gonna get shanked by a thief boy. You were saying?
I was gonna say, in a certain way, this game and series, and broader developer do serve as great onion headline generators.
Yeah. Absolutely, they do.
There's no way oddly specific thing is going to cause problems for me, says man right before oddly specific thing causes problems for him.
Don't forget the shortcut is you have to drop off.
Oh, that's right. Well, yeah. I'll just be right back. You know what's extra bad for me on stream? For so long, streaming was something I didn't want to do because it felt like filming sex or something. Like it just felt so like your ass is just out there. Because like, especially a game where you're supposed to struggle a bit. Like I get that like we're all supposed to have these games in our blood now, and they're not supposed to feel hard anymore, and yada yada yada. Wank wank wank. Get good, but
wait, is that a thing? This game is still tremendously hard for me.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't know it from the way you play it, bruh. But
I mean, I died before you did.
Yeah, well, sure, but after heroics.
So my sign is behind that guy. I don't know if you want to rush and summon me and then start the fight. It's kind of your call. Otherwise,
behind which guy? The guy I'm fighting, or the guy in the hallway?
No, like right. It's like right in front of the door.
Oh, okay, yeah, I can just rush. It's fine. They've seen us fight these boys. Oh boy, I got caught on a wall. Hey ho. All right, here we go. Bad day for me. Okay. I see.
Now they will follow you.
Oh, they will. I know.
So if you just summon me quick and do the fog door, I think you'll be fine.
I will say that watching Drew struggle with this makes me feel better about not having gotten this far in it.
This is also like the walking and chewing gum thing, right? Like I'm brand new to the idea of trying to have a public facing conversation while doing this. I'm usually.
I will come to you this time.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say I am playing worse than in previous sessions in this one, but I haven't played well in previous sessions.
You also have one more factor to keep in mind in that I am uninvolved and on a delay and just talking about things not directly related to what's on screen.
Sure.
Like, for example, I was going to bring up that, Drew, you are solely responsible for me ever enjoying any of these games.
That's true, isn't it?
Yeah, without your early co-op efforts, I may not have ever gotten through the initial wall on Dark Souls 1. So you have my undying thanks, as I truly do enjoy these games quite a bit. Even the ones that I probably won't ever finish, I'm glad to have played. and that is entirely due to your generosity with your time. So,
well,
many thanks.
Oh shucks. I mean, I feel
Sweet.
similarly about the Persona
Now,
games.
Kith.
I would that we could.
Don't give my wife any ideas.
Yeah, well, sure. You're the woman who ships everyone. Yes.
Yeah, it's charming.
Yes, exactly.
She is watching this. I am not calling her out at all. But
Not Raylo, I hope.
No,
genuinely.
it's I don't think so. No, it's not that she's an inveterate shipper with media. She's an inveterate shipper with people.
Oh, I feel like that's even better.
I suppose both. Did I tell you that we did that episode about shipping, Luce, and I got exactly one email that said, "Yes, I do ship you guys."
You and Adam.
No, you and me, man.
Oh. You are my friend.
I did not get any emails claiming that Adam and I ought to be shipped, but I'm sure people.
Yeah, most. I think just by virtue of. I'm trying to think of what it is. Like, there's a I don't know words. So obviously, toxic masculinity is still a thing, but I've noticed that when it comes to, when it comes to online bros doing things together, that there is always some sort of like ship following.
Well, that's a
like
specific.
The first ones that come to mind are the Game Grumps. Like, they've built like a whole empire on that idea almost. Like,
isn't there like a Hard Times article about like the episode where the two of them finally kiss? Like, and it has to be the last Game Grumps episode.
I couldn't remember that. And they're very like self-aware, which they just.
Well, it's like, I mean, I think the two stories you're telling are the same story, right? Like, because toxic masculinity is still such a thing, and because because male tenderness is so not normalized. That's exactly why people are hungry for this kind of stuff. I mean, like, this is where like ships come from, right? Like the idea that neither Kirk nor Spock have a loving relationship between an equal in a heterosexual pairing in Star Trek. So you got to ship them with each other if you want like a deep love,
Yeah. Well, and we've talked at length about how artists often don't understand their own art, and I feel like most of the time that leaks out, especially probably by male authors. It's like to your point, you set up these parameters in such a way that even though it was groundbreaking from a meta media sort of way, like to have Kirk kiss Uhuru, like it seemed as unnatural as it would have been natural to see like Spock and Kirk kiss.
Right, no, totally. No, they had to be brainwashed, and it had to be there were all these weird narrative framings around it. Whereas Kirk and Spock, it's like they're basically they're basically married. It's just the text doesn't quite say so.
Oh, they fucking.
Oh, they fucking. Yes, they are. And the longing looks across the holodeck or whatever are just part of it. The fighting is part of it. It's all part of it. I mean, this is. I'm
not gonna lie. I get choked up with Shatner's speech at the end of Wrath of Khan. He delivered that line so well, and I'm convinced that it was because of his understanding of their relationship. That's like I feel like maybe not the creators, but actors tend to understand that stuff before the creators. Like, what's that great meme? It's like kidnapper slaps Oscar Isaac across the face. Say it. Say Poe is straight. Oscar Isaac spits blood. Fuck you.
Very good.
Bless Oscar Isaac.
Yeah.
And fuck Rise of Skywalker. But no, I mean, what I find so interesting about that aspect of like shipping and fandom and the queering of characters in fandom is that like the fact that it happens and is necessary is a direct result of toxic masculinity in a funny way, because like the relationships between men and women are written in this very kind of rote, like, woman has prize kind of way, especially in a lot of like action movies and stuff. So it's like specifically because
I think I'm doing more damage to his tail.
Oh,
speaking of callbacks, mechanically.
Huh? But the tail doesn't come off.
No.
Unlike in Dark Souls 1, where every tail comes off, so you have to develop OCD even if you don't already have it. But it's like because the male-to-male relationships are the ones that get attention, they're the ones that are the more interesting to write about, and you just have to slap a kiss on there in a certain sense,
Yeah. Oh God! So getting it back to the game at hand a little bit. So I'm trying to remember your initial reactions to the game because I thought you geeked out over the Nameless King a little bit. But so was your reaction more? I should say somewhere maybe. I didn't have a context for this, so this was just sort of like.
I had to explain to you why this was a big deal that we were meeting the Nameless King at the time that we did. Right?
Yeah, but I'm saying like let's just start with Oseros. Like, so I don't even want to frame it as to counter Adam's point because that's not what I'm trying to do. But for me, I find Oseros interesting insofar as like his connection to this game we were playing, and like one of the things we're talking about is how a lot of the other From Software titles are very much more self-contained than this one.
Mm-hmm.
But the ways in which this one expands on the first one to me are satisfying, almost like in a way like I'm curious to see what you guys think, if you would agree or disagree. This game to me reads more like Miyazaki had a lot of this in his head when he did the first one, and here he got to kind of realize it because and I don't know how much we want to pull from the fact that like he went off to work on Bloodborne and then another team worked on 2, but I wonder if this would have been like Dark Souls 2. It just would have been this if Miyazaki had decided to do a direct sequel right away.
Right. Well, this actually was in development before Bloodborne, and I think maybe even concurrently with Dark Souls 2, like in terms of pre-production. So this was sort of his direct follow-up in a sense. Yeah.
Well, and so from my perspective, then one of the things that makes me like, man, I really like Dark Souls 1, and then Dark Souls 3 comes up and goes, hey, I heard you really like Dark Souls 1, so do we, and I go, I don't know, man. I've got something else to do tonight. Part of that is that if that's true, then it, and I don't, speculate too much on like creator intent and stuff, but especially not for something with this many hands on it.
Mm-hmm.
But the idea that like this was what was intended doesn't make me really so much go, oh, I should really like put some more time into it. Partially because I have actually tried to seek out a lot of the sort of like answers and stuff that I would be curious about already, but it's just because I don't think it's very good. Like if this was the final
so you don't think it's good in terms of the way it's crafted?
I mean,
all of it. Like that's what I'm kind of curious to like. Yeah.
Part of what I liked about Dark Souls 1 is that it was archaeology, right? Like you got some concrete information and then you had to infer a lot of other things, which meant that, things like, oh, maybe Solaire is like Gwyn's lost son, was kind of a fun fan theory. It could never be, authenticated with the text of Dark Souls 1, but it was like, hey, this all kind of fits. And if you think that's dumb, then the game doesn't make you accept it, but if you like it, you can kind of, just kind of have it as a headcanon. Similarly, like what exactly happened to Seath in the intervening years? Well, I mean, clearly he has lost his marbles, but, like we don't get a lot of that information. You just can kind of, imagine, the deepening horror of the Duke's archives over time.
Right.
There's a lot that it Dark Souls 1, for my mileage and the way that I consume these stories personally, gave me the exact right amount of information and withheld the exact right amount of information. Okay. Dark Souls 3, for me, answers only questions I wasn't interested in. Okay. And then, does almost nothing with the stuff that might have been kind of fun to follow up on thematically, and it seems to go out of its way to disavow Dark Souls 2, which had some really cool material in it. There's one tree of giants and then some gear, and that's pretty much it for Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, there's characters. You get invaded by
there's NPCs.
You help another character deal with Kraton the Wanderer.
There's the Dead Laddersmith, which is arguably just adding insult to injury.
And then there's the one zone in the DLC on the way to the Ringed City that is from Dark Souls 2, I think.
That would be a Drew question, I guess. I can't remember.
Yes, there is, and I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. We'll get there.
It's got the desert pyromancer in it, is all I remember. For sure. But in any case, and that's perfectly subjective, right? Like, but I didn't need
behind that chest, by the way, dude. You got to go back.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're right. I remember there being more here, but then I remembered there being less. But then boy, this game, it just doesn't stick in the dang old noodle. No, but it's like the question of how much should be revealed and how much should be kept secret is I think the crux of it, right? Because like for me, I think I said to Lucio, like for me, what I actually said was if they had given you information about Velka or the Pygmy, that would.
Did you get? By the way, did you get the
gesture?
The gesture, yeah.
I did, yes.
Okay.
If they had given us information about Velka or the Pygmy, said I, that would have been a bridge too far. And then Lucio was like, well, the Ring City is all about the Pygmy. And I was like, God damn it, you're right. But I think Velka for me is the line, right? Because like Velka is like the super mysterious figure. Even the gods fear her, and she might be an actual god instead of just like a...
So... Since we have Adam on, do we want to deal with Archdragon Peak? That's sort of where I figured.
If you think that's the place where the rubber meets the road, let's go there. Yeah. So
I mean, not necessarily. This is a smallish area. Like it's not easy by any means, but it doesn't also take super long. The only thing you do here is fight Champion Gundar.
You're the guide, man. I'm the color commentator.
I mean, one of the great things about the way we have these conversations, it's not like we need to be doing stuff specifically to talk about it, but what time is it? 6:40? I mean, I have about an hour and 20 minutes left. I don't even know if we'll get to the Nameless King if we do Archdragon Peak, so I guess let's just do this area.
Okay. Somewhere in my head, it would be super cool if we did Archdragon Peak after you have seen the Dragon area from Dark Souls 2. Because it is so specifically a callback to specifically that. This is one of the metal album covers that Adam is talking about. I mean, if it doesn't happen, that's fine. But all things being equal, I think there will be more to talk about for folks who have played both. If you can make that comparison.
And my sign is down a little up ahead, by the way.
Oh, groovy! I'll get up from my nap.
Yeah, it was very very relaxed in this dank cave.
you take comfort where you can find it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, so I think. Am I wrong to say that for you, meeting the Nameless King is a bridge too far in terms of answers? Like even knowing what he looks like or what became of him is like takes some of the shine off the mystery.
It felt like an unsatisfying answer to a question I might have been interested in, but it also felt specifically just mean to like the community. Like it was, no, you guys are all wrong. This wasn't Solaire. It was never Solaire. Shut up about Solaire. You know, like, and I'm probably reading a lot into that, right? Like, I'm not saying that's actually like any sort of intent. But you know, it felt, you know, simultaneously like a, you know, for a game that spent so much time being like, you like Dark Souls 1, right? You know, it felt very much like a, why do you like Dark Souls 1? Stop liking Dark Souls 1. You know, when I heard about the Nameless King.
I just want to make it, because again, you know, folks who tune in who don't know us personally are probably tuned in because they like the podcast. The Brendan Chung episode we did recently, he talked a bit about the inherent hostility of creators giving answers to anything fans are speculating about, because you're essentially foreclosing on further speculation. And that's always a little bit, yeah.
So what was his take on it? Like he was saying that it's just a thing you deal with. Did he have an opinion about it one way or the other?
He was saying he's very careful as a creator to not give those kinds of answers. You know,
okay, so he would probably be in the Adam camp. He's saying like he wants to leave some of that open for the people who play the games.
I think this is a gray area because he was talking about extra text. He was talking about J.K. Rowling shit, right? Like saying this is what I meant when I made X. I think making a sequel and giving explicit answers to things that were implicit or unexplained in the previous entry in the series, I think that's always fair game. I mean, like if J.K. Rowling had wanted to make a prequel in which there was young Dumbledore. She didn't do that, of course. But if she had, then she could have used that as an opportunity to make him explicitly gay in the text. It's a shame she didn't have that opportunity. You know, but like that's a thing an author can do. But the idea of just like tweeting about something and then like if you tweet about it, it's still not true in the text. It's true in your tweet. Like you know.
This may be a over careful kind of thing on my part, but I, you know, knowing how toxic fan culture can be and stuff, I want to make it clear that like, you know, the fact that something like the Nameless King or Sigurd didn't work at all for me, or like having Andre the Blacksmith in Firelink Shrine at the beginning of this game, like all rubbed me the wrong way. It doesn't mean that they were bad or wrong decisions, and it certainly doesn't mean that I think that, you know, the creative team or Miyazaki or whoever were like wrong or bad for doing them. You know, they didn't work for me.
No, I didn't.
But,
and again, yeah, I didn't take it that way. And I mean,
Yeah.
to reiterate, I'm pretty sure people already know. But like,
I hate
again,
this world that we have to. We're having like a very civil, interesting, intellectual conversation, and we have to keep saying now. By the way, we're not wishing harm upon the creators of this game series. We're deeply engaged with. What a bad world. Please continue.
Yeah. There's
but you know, those things are all fine on their own, but like they weren't things that worked for me. Like,
Now you must do this.
Oh God.
The earliest thing for me that kind of gave me pause in this game was well, I guess seeing Firelink Shrine pop up on my screen when I walked into it and going, oh no, this isn't that place. Why would you want it to be that place? But the thing that perhaps more to the point is the presence of Andre in Firelink Shrine. Like it really is just kind of this like, you remember this guy. That's all there is to this. There are other things where the callbacks are a little bit more substantial, you know, and there are ones where they're not. But you know, that one was really emblematic to me of the ones that really, you know, rubbed me the wrong way. Like I don't
could I pause it like a question? And again, don't take this as like
no
aggro or whatever. I'm just curious. Is part of crafting a narrative, and especially like in building sequels, or you know, one of the things with 2 and 3 is that they ostensibly take place a long time after the first game. Would you have found it? I don't even know if I want to say compelling, but just like you said, less uninteresting. If it had just simply been like a different blacksmith, or is the fact like that they chose Andre specifically? You felt like,
I guess I needed him to be
a lazy decision, or
I needed him to be there for a reason, I guess. Like, the crows don't have any impact on anything by, you know, they're just like a refrain for these games, right? Like, I don't need the story of, like, Teedlee and Pumperum. You know, it's just like, oh, hey, this game's crows. But, like, Andre has, like, a lot of dialogue, and you spend a lot of time, like, you know, kind of with him. He's a person, not just a set dressing in this you know, setting. He's from a place. He's from Astora, you know, which is a place that you can learn about in Dark Souls 1. And so if he was going to be here, I needed it to be for a reason. I needed it to tell me something or suggest something or be a mystery. And it really isn't. It's just, oh, well, you know, timey-wimey shrug.
In order to think about, how I didn't mean to cut you off. I was going to say, like, to think about how this ties into larger questions of narrative, maybe the distinction is between reasons and explanations. Right, because like explanations are, you know, like if there were some kind of metatextual, like multiverse explanation for why Patches always shows up, that would only make Patches less interesting.
Right.
But the idea of there not being a reason for someone who is very clearly not just a similar dude, but the same dude. It's not just that it rhymes; it's a repeated line. You know, that definitely it takes you out of it because the only meaning you can get is metatextual at that point.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and so let me give a little bit of contrast here. With Farron Keep and the Abyss Watchers, the fact that the Dark Wraiths are, like, you know, trudging up that path to fight them when you arrive works for me, right? Like, I know what the Abyss is from 1, and I know that there were Dark Wraiths in New Londo, and, like, maybe I don't know exactly what their story was, you know, to get them to this point in Dark Souls 3, but, like, yeah, I know it makes sense that they would be there, and, you know, that, you know, the people calling themselves Abyss Watchers would be, you know, like, their enemies. Like, that works. That's the kind of the 60-40 split on information.
Yeah, that's more of a rhyme than a repeat.
Yeah, and, like, you know, if these Dark Wraiths are still going to exist, it makes sense that this would be, you know, like something that they would be doing in this world.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, whereas, you know, and this is probably the most contentious thing I have to say about Dark Souls 3, the point at which I decided that it was no longer really worth you know, putting in extra time and frustration in this game was when I learned that
oh god,
you're good.
He's hyper aggro now.
That Aldrich had Gwendolyn sticking out of his mouth.
I mean, that is mean spirited. I mean, it's the question is it mean spirited toward, like, who is it mean spirited toward, right? Like, is that a fuck you to the player who is very interested in maybe the most interesting character in the original game, or is that just to raise the stakes? Is that to show the depth of Aldrich's depravity? I think that's exactly where your mileage may vary.
See, where my mileage ended specifically was that Dark Souls 2. One of the things it gained. Grats on your 5-second-old victory, guys. Over Gundyr there. Very well done. Is that Dark Souls 2, by taking place so far after that you've had cycles of light and cycles of dark, and it always kind of comes back anyway, is that all of the player's choices from Dark Souls 1 are respected. In this game, which does not, almost not acknowledge the existence of 2, and which can't stop reminding you of Dark Souls 1, it invalidates the player choice to have killed Gwendolyn. If you did that, then this game says, haha, no, you didn't. In fact, he was still around, and so was Anor Londo. This is what became of him. I don't mind the idea of one of the gods from Dark Souls having been food for some monster. Like, that's compelling and horrific and, is potentially interesting, but having it specifically be Gwendolyn and having it be like, oh, we brought you back to Anor Londo, what could it mean? And then having it kind of just basically mean like, we're edgy.
When it's, I guess this is both agree, like this runs counter to your point and also in the same direction as your point. How's that going to work? You wait and see.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
There is actually like more going on with the presence of that was a bad parry. With the presence of Gwendolyn, because if you follow the plot where you marry Henri of Astora, is Henri from Astora?
Henri is from Astora.
The wedding, the super weird wedding scene, takes place in the room where that you would only have seen if you killed Gwendolyn. So like there's something else going on there, but if I'm perfectly honest, I don't know what.
Right. Yeah, well, and like again, some confusion is perfectly reasonable to expect from these games. Part of what I enjoy about them is their sense of mystery, investigation, and kind of the archaeology and fitting together puzzle pieces on your own that you do. But if it doesn't give you enough information to start making guesses, it starts to feel really unfulfilling to me. And then if it's just like, here's another Onion Knight. You liked the first one, didn't you? Then I'm just kind of left wondering, like, what was my reaction supposed to be, right? Like, was I supposed to be able to fit this together, and I'm just kind of too dull, or I'm not finding all the secrets, or is it that it's just kind of like, a series of Easter eggs left kind of out on the table for me to enjoy the coloration of?
There are, to my mind, 3 basic approaches if you're going to do this kind of archaeological storytelling. And I think they actually, not perfectly, but somewhat map to the 3 games a little bit. One would be cohesion, right? There are answers, maybe there are multiple contradictory answers, but every piece of information is leading you somewhere. This is really goddamn hard to do. I would say the Dark Souls 1 and Bloodborne are probably the best, and Sekiro are really, really good in this way. The second thing would be to make it untouchable. That could mean vague, or it could just mean a giant swirling amorphous mass. This is what Dark Souls 2 does, right? Like it is, I think this is another H-Bomber guy point, right? It's the ultimate eldritch horror to gamers, capital G gamers. It's a game you can't make a complete wiki about. Like it's they're all the connections don't quite fit. The third thing would be an Ouroboros. Just a mythology that almost becomes about itself. Now this could be done badly. That's when you get BioShock Infinite. Why is there always a man and why is there always a lighthouse? Who knows? Fuck you.
There was a ghost in that fucking game.
Why were there ghosts in that? Anyway.
Speaking of metatextual.
But I think Dark Souls 3 is definitely, I would say, a better example, but it is that Ouroboros approach. I mean, like, to the point that in the area we're in right now, it's not just eating the previous games, it's eating itself. You're back where you started, but in like a weird nightmare version. Like it's on the nose about that. And I don't know that any of those, like I think maybe that first approach is the most interesting to me personally, but like you said, Dark Souls 1 is the more, I don't remember the exact word you used. Adam said it was like a better game or something. It's definitely, it's like a more fascinating piece of art, but I'm not sure it is a better game than 2. Like that, what is that distinction, right? Like it's maybe not as fun to play. I don't know. What do you want out of a game is a complicated question.
Right. Well, my answer with these games keeps changing, right? Because Dark Souls 2, I thought I didn't want anything that it had to offer. I was upset about instant bonfire teleportation. I was upset about health gems. I was upset about despawning enemies. And over the course of playing it, I realized, oh no, those are all actually things that I really appreciate about this.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Because when you go back and play Dark Souls 1, the lack of fast travel in the first half is, I can still respect it artistically, but that doesn't mean I'm enjoying doing it.
Right. and it's an integral to what they were doing with that kind of layered, cohesive world. And the more I played Dark Souls 2, the more I realized that, like, no, if this had tried to do that, I would have just nitpicked it to death, right? Like, it wouldn't have been the first one. So it was a good idea to go in a different direction.
Yeah.
This game went in another different direction, right? Dark Souls 2 was a wheel and spokes. And Dark Souls 3 is a longish hallway with a couple of diverticula. Not to be like dismissive, it's a fairly, linear, confined path.
Yeah.
There's exploration to be done, and unlike in Bloodborne, most of the time when you like go to explore, there is a reward for it that means something. You get some lore or some new equipment or a new play style or something. But it does feel more restrictive, and that could be fine. If I was enjoying the journey. But, whereas in Dark Souls 2, I could always go on a different branch if I was not feeling a particular area and come back to it later, or in Dark Souls 1, like I had no idea where I was supposed to go. It was just what didn't kill me right away. This one, it's usually, pretty clear. The world lacks any kind of real cohesion because Firelink doesn't really connect to anything. You don't have any idea where things are in relation to each other until fairly late in the game, and some places never really do link up.
It's actually a structure stolen from Demon Souls,
right?
Which is like the very first thing you do once you arrive at the hub area is warp somewhere.
Right. And, Demon Souls is an interesting game, but I certainly did not enjoy my time with it as much as I did with Dark Souls 1 or 2.
Real excited to see, because Bluepoint, who's doing the Demon Souls remake, has a reputation, a well-earned one, for very faithful remakes. The Shadow of the Colossus didn't really make the horse work better, even though arguably the game could benefit from that, right? That wasn't one of the great things about Shadow of the Colossus. So for them to do a very, very faithful Demon Souls remake, I am curious to see what the kids think of that one.
We'll for sure.
Yeah.
Quick aside to what you guys were saying about cohesion. Something that this game does, maybe, or at least did for me, is once you've explored everywhere, you do kind of start to see how it ties together, even if not directly. So, like, if this was Dark Souls 1.
Speaking of, I'm sorry, really quickly, where the fuck are we going right now? Are we
you're in Hell Dungeon.
Oh, right. Oh, we're doing the dragon zone.
At this point, yeah, we're just going to keep going. That's the next step. So if you're in Firelink proper, and you look back towards the area where you fought Yiddick's Gunner, and you look up, we are actually behind Lothric Castle, and you can see where we fought the twin princes, Lothric and.
Can I see that in the dark dimension?
That I don't know. I don't think
not.
So.
Yeah. But sure, yeah. That cohesion is there. But I mean, this is the interesting thing about the which bonfire in Irithyll Dungeon, by the way?
I think the only one, I want to say.
Oh, it's the only one called Irithyll Dungeon, not the Profane Capital. Yeah, I gotcha. I'm with you. I'm with it. I'm hip and cool. What was I saying? Right. No, so I mean, that's the interesting thing about the lack of fast travel for most of the first game, right? When you see something in the distance, it's not just that that's a place you can go. It's a place you can contiguously walk to.
Exactly, yeah.
That's a very different experience.
In Dark Souls 3, like in Dark Souls 2, there's definitely some, like,
let me spell these souls real quick. Then we'll do the thing.
Chicanery with the space and the distance going on. But in Dark Souls 3, because of this, admittedly very evocative, like one of my, I have a lot of quibbles with the direction that FromSoft's visual design went in once they got the PS4's Clutter engine going. But the visual design of a lot of the actual places and tableau and stuff in Dark Souls 3 really do work for me. I may not like that it is Firelink Shrine, but this kiln-like area is really evocatively designed. Seeing Lothric Castle from the outside is really evocative, and especially at the very beginning of the Ringed City with all the crashing tidal waves of stuff, it literalizes the thing that I really like from Dark Souls 2 about the pit in the center of Majula being this cosmic low point that everything kind of flows to eventually.
Yeah.
I like a lot of that stuff and the way that it looks, but because of that conceit of everything kind of flowing together across time and space, it can be very bold and not making sense, which is cool. But then it renders spatial relationships less meaningful because neither do you have to traverse them, nor does understanding, I can see Lothric Castle from here, really mean very much for what or where Lothric Castle is. Because
right. No, and I think that's a good point. I would agree with that. Yeah.
And it's not the most meaningful thing about the game's layout, frankly, but it is. I think a reason why, despite observing some of those connections, they didn't really feel the same way to me as they did, as even looking up and seeing the distant tower of Dranglight Castle in Dark Souls 2, right, and being one day I'm going to go to there. The Dark Souls 2 pulls a cheap trick there too, right? You go around a corner in a valley and then suddenly it's storming on you so that you can approach the castle in the rain with lightning in the background,
Yeah. No, it's the metal album cover thing is the priority. Cohesion be damned.
It is silly, but it did work on me,
The classic example is when you get through Harvest Valley and then you're in Iron Keep, right? You're at the top of a tower. You can see that you're at the top of a tower. Then you go further up and you're in the middle of a volcano.
Right.
There's no part of that makes sense, and it's sort of great.
Yeah, and I thought, so it's since been admitted that was maybe a mistake that somebody made and didn't catch until too late or something, but when I thought that was intentional, I was they're really fucking with me now. Bring it on,
Well, that's the interesting thing about this approach, right? Because if you're gonna
do you know where you're going, by the way?
No,
dude?
not
just
a clue. I was about to ask.
Watching your stream. So you're actually okay. Stop moving so I can get my bearings. I mean, kill rats. I gotta
deal with some rats here, bro.
Because I think you can get to where you need to go from here.
I can go back up the elevator. That's easy enough.
You don't want to go back up the elevator at this point, but you do need to go through some giant rats, I want to say.
Giant rats. Here's the problem. These rats are too small. So this way?
Yeah, these are your... Well, you say this way, but I'm about 4 seconds behind. So
sewer pipe zone. Ashen 1 got through sewer pipe zone Act 1. Would it help if I went back to the elevator?
Not that way. There's another door that you can go through.
Another door, you say?
Yeah, that does not lead upstairs. Yeah.
And not that way because that's the wrong way, but yet a third way.
That way, yeah.
That way?
Yeah, I believe. If I again 2 seconds behind.
Don't see a third way.
There shouldn't be a third way. There's just 2 ways to get out from here, but it's not the elevator way.
Oh, not the elevator way, but yes, this other way.
Yes.
I see. We're experiencing lag problems. Yes.
Oh, I am glad that my characters got eaten and I could not participate in this because I would be making Drew look like a Lobos level expert at this point. In the little bit of a downtime here while he travels, one of the interesting things is how much aesthetics have made a difference too in how much I enjoyed each of these games. Sort of the kind of almost understated sound and visual design of a lot of Dark Souls 1, and it's
hard to you want to go right where those rats were coming from. Sorry to interrupt.
I think I remember this part.
You're absolutely fine.
Basically, you're gonna have to.
I do remember this from here. Yeah.
You're gonna have to go through the room with all of the crazy wardens, but you want to head kind of up. Yeah, and you'll come out and then you'll be right there, and then you have to use the.
I think I got you.
I'm not
gonna mess with these friends. But they sure want to mess with me though. Running.
And I will also be right back.
Running, Ashen 1 running free. Ooh boy, they sure did follow me all the way here. Let's just deal with it.
You seem on my stream to have made it though.
Yeah, I'm all right. All seems well. Yeah, sometimes your stream is the moment before disaster, but
Occasionally.
All right, so now we meditate. And then something happens. This part's weird. It's weird in a way that I do appreciate. But you were saying that the aesthetic of each game.
Yeah. So yeah, the Bloodborne, everybody always talks about how gorgeous that game is, and it has some things that really do appeal to me. But for my money, the visuals are noisy and cluttered, and the sound design is samey and grating, and I don't like very much of it. And I know I'm in the minority there. I'm not saying anybody, is wrong because they like it. It rubs me the wrong way by comparison to what I had come before. And Dark Souls 3, for my money, ports over more than I would have liked from that. Everything screeches and everything splashes, and there's 10 million candles that nobody could possibly have lit everywhere.
Look at these fucking rocks and trees. You know what I mean? Like, it's some of that is like promises kept. I mean, like, I feel like maybe Dan Floyd talks about this a bit, that each of these games does what could only be done with the new stuff they were working with, right? There's a lot of water and slime in Dark Souls 1, and then, as you say, the Cluttercore aesthetic of certain PS4 games. They do port that over to Dark Souls 3 from Bloodborne, and these piles of rocks that can all be knocked over, and that's the example of the 10,000 candles and all that.
And there are some definite design triumphs in Dark Souls 3. I would never claim otherwise. But at a certain point, this may not be a meaningful point of reference.
You missed my summon sign, by the way.
If by missed you mean didn't see, then super that I see it now. We were just talking about these piles of rocks you can knock over as part of the legacy of the Cluttercore aesthetic from Bloodborne.
Which I'm a fan of. I kind of came in a little bit because I had to go to the party.
It happens,
but
bro.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I was saying.
You were saying you didn't like that, Adam?
I really appreciated the cleaner, even, dare I say it, somewhat more understated design from before the Bloodborne Cluttercore era, because it did feel like a place with a history and a purpose in a way that a lot of the sense of place gets kind of diminished for me by having, why are these chains around these coffins? No reason. Why would anybody ever have a graveyard where the headstones are stacked on each other? That's not how you bury people.
Wait, you're talking about Bloodborne or this game?
Both.
Oh, okay.
In terms of the graveyard.
Sure. When there are more units of mise-en-scène, naturally it's harder to think about what each one means, and you may not even. It may be wrong to have the expectation that each thing means something specific.
Sure. I feel like Dark Souls 1 is the only game that lived up to that expectation.
Sure.
In any meaningful way. But it didn't stop me from looking for it. And in Dark Souls 2, at least, the design was navigation friendly and still felt, sort of worn. Whereas, the Baroqueness, the comparison I was going for, which may not be particularly meaningful, is to the artwork from Warhammer and Warhammer 40k stuff, where it's just somebody forgot to tell them they could stop drawing this. I get that feeling from a lot of the design elements in Bloodborne and in Dark Souls 3. And, again, I think Lucio was gone when I said this initially, but a lot of the stuff really does work. The opening tableau from, this zone was one that, Drew pointed out. Some of the skylines in Bloodborne are really evocative. The people turning into those trees on the high wall of Lothric works for me. There are things that are absolutely successful, but the overall impact, the overall effect on me is definitely one of this is too maximal, right? Part of what made the tone of the first two Dark Souls work for me so much is that they were, you got this feeling of sort of quiet misery. These were places that, were, kind of sinking into decay and despair. Whereas, as much as there's rubble in this area, it's turned up to 11, right? Everything is not quiet at all.
It's interesting though, because it is quiet compared to the Dragonary, which is full Metal Album cover. This more just looks like the Alps with a castle people haven't taken care of. So it's like, what I find so interesting about Dark Souls 3 is it's everything we've been talking about from the previous games, but just like somewhere else on the number line. It almost like the part of it that makes it feel like a victory lap to me is that it is just sort of like fiddling with switches as often as it's doing something genuinely new, you know?
If I can be a completely different kind of nerd and pick a ton of tiny nits here for a second, it's just interesting to me because I hadn't thought of it until you said it, not because it's terribly meaningful as a criticism. I think what makes something like the Dragonary work for me in Dark Souls 2 is that it is a change in volume, right? Like it hasn't been what's the compression in like remasters, just kind of, you know, older music, kind of taking away the dynamic shifts.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of feels.
Attenuation is what you're thinking of, or
sorry,
you're thinking about attenuation, or you're just literally thinking about like audio compression? You're talking about like losing bandwidth.
It's whatever they do that makes everything the same. Like it's all loud. It's all as loud. It's the earbud mastering.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Sorry, that didn't mean to get so esoteric there.
It was a good one. No, I just wanted to make sure the metaphor was that we were on the same page. Totally. You please continue.
Yeah. And so, you know, the intensity of play.
Real quick, did you forget how to beat this boss, dude?
I remember that I have to drop on him, but I don't remember how I get up there. So I will figure that out after I burn to death.
I mean, yeah, I don't. You're getting items. You're adorable.
Whoops.
I thought there was a ladder over here, and there was, spoiler alert, not a ladder over here.
Can you see me in the distance?
Yeah.
You.
But yeah, there's a certain maximalism to the aesthetic design in Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 specifically that makes those kind of rhythms dependent solely on gameplay, right? I never got a very different feeling from anywhere that I went. It was all cluttered, overgrown, ruined stone, and, you know, just maybe a different color palette if I was in the swamp or something, you know. Topography can change a lot, which is helpful. You know, architecture changes are nice as well. But, you know, there was a certain, it applied kind of the same finish, I guess, to most of the areas when I was playing it. You know, sort of the same way that like 90% of the enemies like shriek in a cleric beastly fashion in Dark Souls 3.
As opposed to Bloodborne, where it's just those fucking... It's the cleric beast, or it's those goddamn crows.
Crows, man. Oh, man.
So we're safe here if you want to do some fighting.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, definitely picking nits there and entirely a thing of taste, but it was something that I hadn't really been able to articulate until I had your thoughts to springboard off of, Drew.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
So backing up a little bit, where do you stand? Because I feel, Drew, like I enjoy the sort of, I guess what you guys are calling Cluttercore of Bloodborne in this game. Not for its own sake, but just because I feel like it added a lot of, I guess, environmental, I don't even know if I want to say storytelling, but like, so for example, in the Grand Archives, you know, there's hundreds of thousands of books falling over and spilling out of the place and like literally grabbing at you and like eating at your life essence, which really kind of brought to life that place as this sort of like chaotic and sort of like anxious place. And you gonna come here? In a way that like the Duke's Archives, I remember, felt very like sterile. Like I didn't really get a sense that there was like everything felt very orderly. You know, there weren't necessarily books lying all over the place, and
it felt like a functional library as opposed to
and it felt like a chaotic one. Like it felt like it was just insanity, you know. And then by that same feeling I get here, just in terms of like this place has been, you know, like kind of forgotten for so long that there's just all of these, you know, like stacked rocks and just, you know, there's time to just put those things up and like, so it kind of evokes this sense of like, yeah, like time passage. So
that's what's interesting to me. So like in Bloodborne, the way I took it is,
and I was gonna say in Bloodborne it's very similar too, like with a lot of the houses you find and all of that.
Bloodborne to me, it felt like dream logic, right? Like that there was no way someone lit 500 candles and left them all over the floor, but that's totally an image you would see in a dream. You know, because Bloodborne, like what is actually happening in Bloodborne?
I figured you could try, and then I'll try if it doesn't work.
Almost a futile question to ask.
Maybe I should go first, because if you die, oh boy.
Oh yeah, sure didn't do that very well. Well, you're
all right. Let's see. Nope. I'm dead.
Back around we go.
When
you don't get the prompt till you're already falling, right?
I don't even know if it's a prompt. It's just like
he's like a plunging attack.
The dragon is kind of in position. I think you sort of reset it when you landed next to him.
So this is a good example of what I mean about turning dials. By the way, we'll get back to Cluttercore, but like this is a kind of
we're opening a lot of threads here.
This is a kind of boss that is very. I mean, it's the first boss in Dark Souls 1. It's the tutorial boss. You go around an environment, and then you plunge on a guy who you could have fought before, but who it's probably inadvisable to do so. Here it's like there's almost a whole section of this level between arriving and the plunge, so it's like that turned up.
Mm-hmm.
Turned up for what?
Well, and this is
turned up for gameplay effect. Oh, I'm sorry, that was a rhetorical.
I understand it too. Not a boss that you could really fight on the ground. Like it's not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that this is not a boss that you could fight if you chose. You have to do it this way.
Is that true, or is it just incredibly tedious to do it the other way?
It's incredibly tedious to do it the other way. Because in fact, later there is a wyvern that if you want to kill it, you either have to do arrows or fight it on the ground like that.
So this is not me being petulant. What did I do wrong there? Do I need to aim more for the head?
Oh, you did it again.
I did, and I failed completely.
It's a timing thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can be petulant. I mean, we're talking about what works and what doesn't, so.
Yeah, well, so the boss you can only fight one way is it's divisive in these games, right? Because one of the things that sort of defines these games is that there's a million ways to do everything. The game is very friendly to, like, there may be a way that's optimal, but there, you can snipe with magic, or you can get right in there, you can parry, you can roll, whatever. So when the game sort of goes a different way and really, really, really wants you to do one specific thing, the thing has to be interesting. Like, it's got to be a puzzle for that to be worthwhile for me, right? Otherwise, it just becomes a AAA game where you have to stand in this spot and press this button so the cinema can happen.
Right.
You wanting to play it just gets in the way,
Yeah, we talked a lot about Yorm when we fought him. And how
Yorm, I think, is a great example
for my
of
money.
a good gimmick boss, because he's still doing, you have to dodge
That's
and whatever.
What I was about to say before you interrupted me.
Well, then,
yes.
well, then you know what? You say it. Man.
No, and I was going to say, I was going to let you talk, continue talking, just to say that, but this is one I would say is not as interesting.
Yeah. Because Yorm, it's like, there's a piece of equipment that is important to his story that you have to use, and like there's a little bit more motivation. There's a little more motivation there. Where's your sign? Is it down?
Oh, sorry, I was following your stream, so it's up ahead.
Oh, okay.
Forgetting that I'm 2 seconds behind.
Time's getting all fucky.
The thing to remind myself of, right, is that the one note sort of puzzle boss that doesn't quite work is as old as Demon Souls. I think most people have the opinion that the Dragon God is not particularly great, and then the Bed of Chaos is a lot of people's least favorite encounter in Dark Souls 1.
Oh, the Bed of Chaos.
The Ancient Dragon in Archdragon Peak in Dark Souls 2, like I never fought it. Like, it's just a chore. So it's not like it's unique to this boss. We're describing something that is, Soul series, in that. But as a point of comparison to like the tutorial boss, sort of like acknowledging the player effort or expertise or just dedication, seems to be an inconsistent value.
Sure.
Yeah, within the same game, like there's areas where it works and where it doesn't. I would say
the part that I'll be salty about with this one is if you're gonna make it a puzzle boss, then the skill being tested has to be solving the puzzle. Mm-hmm. So like ostensibly, I did the right thing, and the game didn't give me any feedback as to why I didn't do it right.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do it right. That was what went wrong. I didn't do the move right. But there's kind of no other point in this whole game where you have like a plunging attack in anything like that timing. So it's like, I don't know how you're supposed to be ready for this. And so to try it again, we have to do all this shit again. Like it's if it's going to be a puzzle boss, it's got to be kind of like tight feedback. It kind of can't be squishy,
Right.
Right.
No, this is one of those instances where I'm definitely in line with what Adam is talking about. So like this is certainly a callback. This is certainly like, oh yeah, I remember this thing from Dark Souls 1, but it's not really, to your point, giving you any sort of like informational reason as to why that is. I mean, we know that, you know, the dragon's skull was like, you know, their weak spot, and that lightning weapons, especially spears, were really effective. But you know, as you said, like, you did the thing, but you did it wrong, I guess. So
Yeah, right, exactly. Like,
oh Lord.
If there has to be exactly one thing that's right, it almost has to be a binary. You know what I mean? You're doing it or you're not.
Yeah, and that's I don't think that's always easy to do, to be sure.
Well, that's why AAA games do it the way they do it, which is there'd be a hot spot up on that that platform.
Push X to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would say like slaughter the ancient dragon or whatever. You know.
Right. Well, and that was the thing is that this feels very much to me like a callback to the ancient dragon on Archdragon Peak in Dark Souls 2, in that it is a stone-looking dragon that is primarily an environmental hazard that you have to climb this mountaintop temple to get to, and that fight sucked. So why are you calling back to it with a fight that sucks?
Yeah.
And I'm not there yet, but so was that an optional boss? You said
Yes.
You never did it, so
Yeah.
okay.
That is a totally optional boss. Yeah.
It seems like Dark Souls 2 has the most optional bosses.
I think it just has the most bosses. It puts a health bar and a name under anything, even if it would more properly be like a mini boss or like just kind of a tough enemy.
Yeah, I think of the Demon of Song as a good example of just like that could just be a weird enemy off to the side. But
Yeah,
Dark Souls
that
2
the,
makes a boss. Yeah.
Is that to the In Defense of Dark Souls 2 videos point, like guys in armor?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that's a lot of the dudes in armor probably would just be Red Eye Knights or something in these other games, you know?
Yeah, and that works for me for Dark Souls 2, but I do understand that, like, okay, it diminishes the fanfare of finding, like, a proper boss if you've got a bunch of them.
Well,
but
especially because, yeah, creature design is something people really love about these games, so yeah.
I'm bad enough that it was still, like, they were all challenging, and it was a long time between when I saw them, so it never fazed me, but I definitely understand why it would, you know, have an effect on someone and their enjoyment of the game.
Yeah, I mean, and Sekiro, of course, leaned into that the most, where almost everything is basically symmetrical. You're fighting humans mostly, not completely, not exclusively. Sometimes it's a weird headless ape, but you know, often it's people. You know, it's dudes in armor.
Yeah, well, and it's built around a dueling mechanic, so that makes a lot of sense, you know, with the parry and the posture and stuff.
Yeah, the poise breaking. Yeah.
But I mean this mostly as a joke, but jumping back to the pun about Cluttercore.
Oh yeah, we did sort of lose that thread. Yeah.
No, all I was going to say about it is that I think part of the reason why I didn't enjoy Bloodborne as much as everybody else did is that it's just dream logic was not terribly satisfying to me. You know, as an explanation, because I did want to find out what happened, and the fact that almost nothing I'm seeing could be said to be real means it's really hard to say anything for sure, and that ambiguity can be its own, you know, thing. But like, Bloodborne does not give me quite as much information as I wish it did.
Sure. You so that's interesting. So you think it falls on the wrong side of the number line in terms of just being too vague?
Yeah, it's probably kind of close, honestly, to where I'd like it to be. And I realize I'm being demanding here, you know, but I guess that's, you know, something that I can...
Man, I cannot parry this guy. I don't know why. There we go.
I was like, this guy sucks.
Why didn't it? So I parried him, and then instead of riposting, I drank an Estus, because I am skilled at video games. You know why? Because I have been playing Ghost of Tsushima, and the follow-up attack is square. Oh, my brain.
That'll do it. The muscle memory is such a big part of these things.
If you want hard mode, do the gesture here.
The dragon gesture? Oh, I remember this part. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Would we value our lives or something?
I mean, it's optional.
Oh,
it's
probably
it gives you the calamity ring.
Probably should have spent these souls.
No, it just gives you the calamity ring. That's all I know.
No, I just mean before we move on, but whatever, it's fine.
Well, guess what? There's a bonfire right here, and there's a beautiful sky.
And I will always.
Oh, there's a lot of environments on this side of this building that, good lord.
Oh, you saw a lot on your journey there?
That's a lot of detail that no one would see, presumably.
I mean, before we go back, just like, these candles, right? So like in Bloodborne, there's dream logic, and we can get to whether that's a satisfying explanation. It's all a dream can be the laziest of lazy story telling devices, but in this world, presumably someone has to light these candles and like replace them, like these are literal places, kinda, right? So it's like the mise-en-scene raises a lot of questions, right? Like. Mm-hmm. Who reads all these books that are scattered around in the Grand Art? Like, is there some weird Dewey Decimal System for the ones scattered all around the floor? Like, what is who lives here? Who are these people?
The Duke's Archives, that actually to me feels like kind of the place in the first two games where this aesthetic that they've embraced in Bloodborne and Dark Souls 3 actually does exist, right? It's just the Astrolabe Emporium.
We got astrolabes.
Yeah, you didn't really run into the problem of like, here are 90 identical statues just stacked up everywhere in those first two games, except for the little statues in the gutter and beyond in Black Gulch, which we, sort of have some suggestion are maybe being like obsessively crafted by what eventually became the Rotten. So there's sort of like a suggestion of an in-universe explanation there, but like, the clutter to me is not it
feels arbitrary.
Yeah, and it disinvites me from thinking about the place as a real space, which in Bloodborne is probably intentional, whether it landed for me or not, right? Like I think we can say that's probably part of the point, because it's not supposed to be a thoroughly real space. Whereas in this, even with the things kind of like, oh, everything's folding in on itself, the best explanation I can come up with is just that these are such impossibly old places that have been dysfunctional for so long that everything is just kind of layered up. But, it doesn't feel like there's actually been as much, age and wear and tear here as there was in, say, 2. Everything still seems kind of more or less like standing. One of the first levels in Dark Souls 2 is a ruined fort that's supposed to be maybe a couple hundred years old, and it's falling down way worse. And so like, I'm not saying like, well, everything has to measure up to the timeline that I have in my head where it's not
I know
acceptable.
what you mean though. Yeah, the clutter does not bespeak thousands of years of neglect so much as, like you said, a long weekend. Like some of these scenes look like these are ancient places that are disused, and some of them just look like there was a really wild party and no one's cleaned up,
Well, it's a maximalism that means that you can't focus on any one kind of thing, and you're discouraged from sort of imagining it as a grounded space. One of the things that made Anor Londo so cool is that it was a distinctly unreal space, but it was unreal because it was built on a scale larger than human,
right,
with familiar things. So it still had kind of an internal logic, and the fact that it sort of had this sense of place within all that was part of what made it very remarkable. And again, kind of talking about volume, before you get there, most everything that you're looking at is either graystone or goop.
Sure, yeah.
And
then Anor Londo is so clean and bright, at least initially.
Yeah. You fly up over that wall, and it's such a change of pace. And I didn't really feel like there was a change of pace anywhere in Dark Souls 3 that I got to.
I think that's fair. I think it does take for granted that you've already seen everything, and all it can do is remix or repeat or recontextualize. That there is nothing new under the sun. So the best we can do is go for other suns. Yeah.
And I didn't get to the library in this game, so like I can imagine it feeling pretty cool that it would be like, very chaotic and sort of, invite uncertainty, and just kind of feel action packed. But that also is not necessarily what, again, I personally come to these games for after 1 and 2, right? They're the sword and board has always been my favorite loadout, and I steadfastly reject. I think it was also H-Bomber guy who did the Bloodborne is Genius video about like it teaches you
shields are the wrong way to play. Period.
Yeah,
in all of the games.
And I'm just like, well, then maybe I don't want to play a Bloodborne. I eventually did, and I'm glad I did. But like, no, I played the way I enjoyed it. I tried it the other way, and I didn't enjoy it. And that was being able to do that was nice. Having drastically reduced options for character builds in especially Bloodborne and to a certain degree in Dark Souls 3 was another reason why they didn't really click. I don't play these games dozens and dozens of times, but I like the idea that I can build in whatever direction I want.
Yeah.
this game does do more than Bloodborne in terms of that, but because you don't have poise and armor kind of only does half of what it did before, and the pace of combat is demanding, shall we say.
It is
the viable spread feels narrower to me. And if I was better at the game, that might be different. So again, a lot of this stuff is on my end and not necessarily anything to do.
But again, there isn't a wrong response here, right? Like, yeah. I mean, and again, we should say the farthest on the number line we're talking about is Sekiro, which is the most action-oriented, and there's only one class.
Right.
There's a skill tree. I would even argue, I think I did argue this last time, that Sekiro would be better without the skill tree. It doesn't really add anything. It just gives you something to grind for, which, I understand. You want that dopamine, but it's so pure a game, if not for that,
Well, it's so straightforward that a grind system felt bizarre to me. I mean, the game doesn't, you can because you need to, but it does, the pacing of it never felt like it invited you to want to grind, if that makes any sense. Grinding always felt weird and out of place. There's this very specific thing you're trying to do. There's this very specific way of playing the game, but you're stopping to fight monks over and over again so you can have the sweet ability, I guess.
Yeah, it's weird. I really only did out and out grinding in Sekiro at the very end when I was like, I've come this far, I'm gonna 100% this thing, and it was to get the last couple skills that
so real quick,
didn't use.
So that wyvern we can fight on the ground right now. He does net you some loot, but we can also run past him. It's kind of your call.
Come on, entertainment for the people.
It's gonna take a long time. Is my point. Oh, I see. Because this is kind of to your point earlier about the earlier wyvern. So it's the same wyvern, but now the only way to beat it, as far as I know, is to do this. And boy, you can look at that health bar and see how effective we're being.
So this is a long-standing trope in these games too, that like dragons and wyverns are very, very powerful. Like, yes, you can kill them, but maybe you shouldn't ought to bother.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do enjoy.
When they make you fight them, I wish they were often better fights. There are a couple, I think, but the trope of there are no good dragon fights in Souls comes from a place. I liked Sin in the Sunken City DLC.
That's
but by the way, I don't know if you meant to say this, but I love that. I want on a shirt. It comes from a place.
There's a place it comes from.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Just the nebulous place.
I think you remember the name correctly. But yeah, the dragon at the end of one of the Dark Souls 2 DLCs, Luce, is a really great fight. Hard as shit, but very hard in an interesting way.
Yeah. Well, and, one of the things that I liked about Dark Souls 2 that, again, is perfectly subjective is that I found it very hard, but I didn't find anything in it beyond me. I'm close to 100% of that game, or as close as you can get in a playthrough anyway. There are binary choices in it, so
right. Yeah, you got to do New Game Plus and get do different things and pick rings and whatever.
But yeah, I that was part of what I really enjoyed about it, is it never felt impossible. As a very brief aside, I felt very betrayed by Hollow Knight when it turned into Super Meat Boy for this reason. Because it certainly meant that I was not going to finish a game that I had been really enjoying mastering.
It's funny, when I said that I'm probably not going to put too much time into the boss rush mode in Sekiro, what I had in my head was the boss rush in Hollow Knight, which I just found so tedious.
The Pantheon thing, yeah. But
I love Hollow Knight, to be clear, but a lot of the I don't know if it's just one of those things where they listen to the fans, and the fans are just people who are so good at the game that you have to make the game tedious to satisfy them. But yeah, some of the end game stuff was not for me.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not good at platformers. So,
you're right. Even the back half of the main campaign, once you start getting some of the weirder traversal moves, there's definitely a fair bit of platform skill testing in that game that the first half of the game, to your point, doesn't advertise at all.
But to come back to the games we're ostensibly talking about.
It's all connected, man.
Yeah, for sure. In this case, the
Tao tends to be a loose fit, and I love it.
You're telling me that Hollow Knight has some connections to Dark Souls? Wait a minute. Ooh boy, there's more of these boys than I remembered, and they
hit hard.
From an evolutionary standpoint, if you're already as hard as rock and can crush everything, do you need to breathe fire?
Yeah. I want it all, dude.
counterpoint, why wouldn't you want to breathe fire?
Sure. All right. If I had the option, I'm not going to turn that down.
I mean, what do you think the buffet table is for?
Yeah, no, this is the lo mein and latkes of evolution right here.
I mean, evolutionarily, even just from a natural selection standpoint, are you going to get with the rock lizard that can breathe fire or the one that can't?
Oh, I mean, no. These you're right. These are some sexy rock lizards. You're very right about that. Cool rock lizards. That fuck.
I mean, late game, I will say, just as an aside, they're one of my favorite enemies because they're so small that you go into it thinking like, oh, I'm going to crush these things, and then they just annihilate you.
They're so tanky for such little squat guys, yeah.
And from a design perspective, that makes sense.
Right, oh, completely, yeah. Wasn't there a bonfire somewhere in here, or am I hiding?
No, up ahead, yeah. You fight Ricard, I will fight the thing.
Ricard, yeah. Hey, buddy.
This is why I wanted Adam to see this, because this area in particular probably has the most callbacks.
Oh, he's going right for you for whatever reason.
Ow, bro.
I knew because I watched this happen in Dan Floyd's playthrough, but I just forgot that he was here. Like, I forgot he was in this game at all.
He's summoned by a dragon shaman, which I don't know what that means, but
yeah, well, and like, what could it mean? There aren't possibilities there.
So I'm a little rusty on Ricard's whole deal. I mean, he was in Sense Fortress in the first game.
Yeah, and that's it.
I mean, Sense Fortress has snake people, which maybe are analogous to dragon people in this game.
Please, Sneeple.
But yeah, there wasn't too much to Ricard, right? It was just the blurb on his rapier and the fact that he was, one of the sort of like hollow heroes.
That 1,000 pokes technique was his big innovation that only he could do.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of that sort of storytelling in Dark Souls 1 and 2. So then why do you pick that guy to make an appearance in this place in this game? And the answer, I think, is probably just because people will like seeing Ricard again and having his rapier back.
There's also there's a greatest hits of the heroes in this area because isn't Havel around here somewhere, or am I remembering wrong?
Yeah, he's up here, but Havel makes sense I think.
Because of dragon hatred. Yeah. Although how he keeps on not being dead is another thing. I kind of like the interpretation that the Havel in the bottom of the tower in Dark Souls 1 is actually just one of Havel's knights, and you never actually encounter Havel himself.
Yeah. These are all.
That's kind of how I took this one as well. Like, I don't whether this is Havel proper or not. I mean, we do know that he had other knights.
Right. I like that explanation better, and that the game will let you. Dark Souls 1 will let you do. Think whichever one you want to think.
And so I mean, as
Does
far
this
as
one
like
give
just
you more confirmation?
finding little points of. Yeah. No, I was gonna say I think this one is just the same.
Yeah.
Like there is no confirmation one way or
Sorry,
another.
that was not a point of contention with this game on this point. I should have clarified that.
Well, that went bad.
I love hearing that because I still haven't seen it.
You're about to see my stealth go badly.
And there it goes.
And boom goes the non-stealth. So we were talking about the way poise works in this game, or doesn't.
Oh boy.
The casual has invaded us. Well,
good timing.
Right. I was going to say, some of the quirkier builds in the early Dark Souls, which I enjoy, but which are, undeniably a bit broken, are things like what were called Havel mages. Right, It was perfectly possible to roll really, 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 really heavy armor, the Havel set, in fact, and still be a caster, and that always felt weird because you had this kind of unshakable casting ability. I think a lot of the weirdness in this game was sort of built around making casters a more like classical, lightly armored class again. To what degree they achieved that, I don't know, but it's different, and you do see people with different builds in PvP in this game than in the others. Wow.
Yeah, well, I feel like sort of the quirkiness of like Giant Dad or Havel Mage or whatever in Dark Souls 1 was I primarily played after Games for Windows Live got stripped out of Dark Souls 1, so I wasn't getting like trolled or ganked or like God forbid had hacked builds that drained your levels or whatever. Right. That stuff was largely gone by the time.
Sorry, we got some dogs losing their minds.
All good.
Invasion wasn't too much a part of your... Hey, chill out, dogs. Invasion wasn't too much a part of your experience in general?
Well, and it was there. But I, opted into it only occasionally. I got invaded a lot more in Dark Souls 2, but there was slightly less in the way of well, I'd say that now that I'm taking it back though, there was quite a bit of gimmick building in Dark Souls 2, but I found that really fun because I'm not a serious multiplayer guy. I never have been and never will be.
We talk a lot about how 2 seemed to kind of invite that with power stance and a weird meta level being at 200 where you could
also just the nature
vitality
of,
all the way up.
Yeah, the nature of infusion and buffing in 2 was bonkers. That you could have a sword with native dark damage, infuse it with dark, and then buff it with a dark spell. That shit's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. That's rule number 1 of all the other games is you can't do that.
Right.
And for good reason, but it's pretty fun in 2, and it means you can just stack damage types to be the glassiest of glass cannons.
Right. Well, and again, because I am not a serious PvP player, paying attention to the meta, taking it, to heart when I get slaughtered, it doesn't.
It's not surprising, so it doesn't hurt as bad. Yeah.
A person with the starting gear could probably slaughter me, so it doesn't. It's more fun, but I could definitely see that being very frustrating if you were somebody who was doing PvP in a serious, kind of competitive way.
We've had some good and some bad PvP fights. I'm a little sorry we didn't get to fight the casual because Havel killed us first, but oh well. We've the one kind of PvP player who I'm sure you encountered, who we make fun of a lot on the stream, is the archetype that we refer to as Iggy Borrington. Iggies are the kinds of PvP players who try to let the environment do the work for them. They invade and then they run into a high enemy density area and hope for the worst.
Yeah. So the only time I've really enjoyed that is in the Grave of the Saints.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Where it was Home Alone.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And if I don't want to do that after I've gone through it the first time with a character, I never have to again if I don't want to. Thanks to the BONFIRE warp.
Oh god, I thought I could outrage him. I was incorrect.
He just.
But I can heal since he takes forever to get to me.
Come on, man. Can you parry him?
If he's one-handing it, yes, actually.
But not if he's two-handing it.
No. Oh god, here I go. Here I go dying again.
How'd I stab him through that shield? Don't think about it.
Hold on. I might die. But you got it.
I got him. He's got.
I have to remind myself sometimes that I'm responding to things that have already happened.
So far, nothing too weird.
Yeah, fortunately for me, your backstab on my screen corresponded perfectly with you guys talking about having actually beaten him.
Oh, funny.
So it sounded like I was, with it, so to speak.
As the kids say. Let me spend these souls, and then we'll move on.
As somebody who teaches 15 and 16-year-olds, I can emphatically confirm for you that, as far as I know, they do not say that.
Oh no! There's no way I'm out of touch.
Even my jokes about how out of touch I am have started to fail to land because kids no longer know what on fleek meant.
Oh no!
Oh wow!
We're so many layers deep.
Yeah, and it just keeps going.
Are the kids still saying jiggy? They've got to be, right?
I have bad news.
I have the worst news for you.
Yeah, they had to explain to me my first year what extra meant when it didn't have an object.
Oh, funny.
I kept on going, extra what? And they thought I was making a joke. I was not. And that has already fallen mostly by the wayside.
Someone had to explain to me that yeet is every part of speech but an adjective. Something cannot be yeet. You can yeet something.
Yeah. My students and I
that's true.
Yeah, I had this joke with them about trying to conjugate yeet. I yeet, you yeet, he yeets, but also
I have yote.
Yeah, yeet, yeet, yote is one alternative, and then yeet, yeetin. I think
I like yeetin a lot.
Yeah. Sometimes we have fun.
Summary of teaching as a profession.
Pretty much.
All right, so what are we doing? Can we fight the Nameless King as a finale here, or do we need to get an item before he'll...
We can, but then as far as I know, it just means that I think the Gauntlet is still available. It just means that the sky is like darkened until we beat him. But also, the Nameless King is not easy by any means.
Yeah, I know. I mean, how much time we got?
I mean, you want to try?
I have heard tell that he is among the hardest.
I mean, let's try.
All right. So you got to go ring that bell, smash that bell.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we got to.
Yeah, my sign is down on those stairs.
Okay.
And the Nameless King probably gives me an opportunity to loop in, the one factor I haven't really talked about yet, which is that these games do get harder. Like, Dark Souls 1 is easier than 2, is easier than 3.
I would actually object to that point. In the sense of like gameplay. Well, no, I mean, so to me, they're not equivocal in terms of like an increasing skill set. It's more like what you're doing. So like, for example, to me, I would take the opposite position with the Zelda games. I would say that the first Zelda is the hardest Zelda game, and then everything that comes after is more like it can be harder in some ways, I guess, but is not the harder game. And in the same way, like to play this game where it's like there's fluidity of movement, there's lots of different, weapons, there's weapon arts, there's, spells are not a number system anymore. They rely on something that you can refill in between bonfires. Dark Souls 1 is incredibly hard, or difficult to me, I should say, in the sense that like you're mitigating a lot of different things that you've grown accustomed to. And my perspective is different just because I played this game first. And then I played Bloodborne, and then I think we finally went back to Dark Souls 1. And I did enjoy it, but I had to enjoy it the way I enjoyed the first time I played Legend of Zelda, all of 4 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
After I had played several Zelda games and I went back to it, and I was like, oh, this is just a different kind of difficulty.
So I guess... Okay, sorry. I thought
No, go ahead. No, I'm pretty much done. That was all I was going to say.
Yeah, not my intention to interrupt, but I guess I can be more specific.
All right, I'll pull the lever. I didn't want to do it in the middle of a thought because I knew you would want to stop talking. So,
having heard that from you, that makes sense. You do have more tools at your disposal in Dark Souls 3, and there's more sophistication there. I actually find that, for me personally, makes it a little harder because I am not ever going to achieve expert play. Right, the fact that Bloodborne made me learn to parry didn't make me better at parrying in Dark Souls 2 and 1. It made me like Bloodborne less. And that's me. But I think something that I can say that is true generally is that, with maybe specific exceptions in specific places, Dark Souls 1 is more forgiving of mistakes than Dark Souls 2 is. And Dark Souls 2 is more forgiving of mistakes than Dark Souls 3 is. Learning has a lower cost in, I think just kind of mechanical terms in the earlier games than it does in this one. Now, that process might be more enjoyable if you like this combat system more. I don't. So, that's me. But, and you may feel like you have more tools to bring to bear to solve that problem. But I feel like the games get more hostile in terms of like punishing failure harshly. Like being, one-shotted or...
Yeah, you're talking moment-to-moment combat. Because on a broader design level, they certainly do get more forgiving in some ways, right? Like in Demon Souls, you die once, you have half your health, right? Mm-hmm. In Dark Souls 2, you slowly hollow more and more as you die over and over. Like in senses like those, the games do get sort of, for lack of a better term, friendlier. God, this boss. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. Like there are way more things that can drop you like a bad habit if you're not playing at a very high level in the later games. I do see that. I mean, in Bloodborne, for God's sake, there are giant ass bosses that the game fully expects you to parry.
Right.
Not that that's the only way to do it, but that's definitely, they're designed around that, and that's pretty intense.
Yeah, and again, what one person finds difficult and what one person finds easy is going to be, highly subjective, and there's the whole thing about, well, the problem is you just didn't get good, with these games in particular. Not that I'm saying anybody here would adopt that stance, but
this is elite stream, bro. We're not there yet, but every day we get some gains, and I don't know.
But boss fights get longer, enemies have more health, and they do more damage, and they have things that are designed to fuck with your strategies for, getting around their strengths. Bloodborne, everything hits in a 360-degree arc around it half the time, just
Dark Souls
so that
2 is real bad about that too.
When it decides to be, and then other times it's just like, oh, cool, you're gonna let me have this one, I guess.
Right.
But like the things that they have sort of just started to implement as a matter of course that feel pretty hostile to that kind of experimentation. Like, let me punish failure, sure, but let me have a learning experience with it. If I don't get that, I get frustrated very easily. Again, my temperament, not necessarily anything to do with the design, much less intent, but that's kind of something that came to a head here, because in Dark Souls 2, if I was banging my head against something, it would eventually despawn.
Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Almost roguelite flavor to it. Like, if you just do it long enough, eventually progress happens. In this, if I was having trouble with something, I was either welcome to continue doing it until I got good, or fuck right off.
Right.
And that is one of the hallmarks of the game, right? That is a little divisive for people. In terms of like where we look at stats and see like where people like the player base drops off, and it's usually like a specific boss or a specific point in the games.
Yeah, and in Dark Souls 1, you didn't have the despawning thing. And again, I thought I would hate it in Dark Souls 2 when it first, when I first detected it. But Dark Souls 1 felt like it, you could get hit and survive to get hit again, even if it was only 2, right? Like, you can make a mistake and go, oh, now I know not to do that, and I don't have to fight through the whole level again to get here. To get one more crack at it.
I do feel like Dark Souls 3 in some places, for example, the place we are right now, is a bit more generous about putting bonfires right next to bosses. Dark Souls 1, I mean, I'm thinking about like Gravelord Nito. You have to run the fight through a lot of shit to get to that fight.
Yeah. That was certainly one that I had a lot of trouble with in that one. But again, I only had to try Nito, and this was as a rank novice, maybe 3 times, right? Like, he could hit hard, he had a lot of stuff, that he could do, but he wasn't probably going to just like, I will give an extreme example, not from my own experience, but because of its extremity. The Bonfire side chat co-host Gary Butterfield, I believe, tried Sword Saint Ashina in Sekiro 75 times.
Holy hell!
Whoa.
Okay,
well, no lie, I definitely tried the Great Ape. That was probably my hardest boss. I remember trying him at least like 25 times.
Can I ask you a question that might frighten you? The first time or the second time?
The first time.
Okay.
Second time was actually not that bad, because by the time you get good enough to beat him the first time, you've kind of gotten a hang of what's going down.
Then then it goes all Sesame Street, and it's two apes.
And even that, if you just follow the old gaming convention of ignore the distraction, it wasn't too bad.
Right. True enough. That's an interesting point about Nito, though. That Nito is a tough boss, but it's all about preventing yourself from getting into situations where he's tough. It's not that someone's going to come like a bolt out of the blue and just kill you.
Yeah, or like if you know what's coming, but you mistime a button press, congratulations, try it again, from the beginning. There were relatively few times, where I felt like I was unable to learn something from an attempt, at a difficult part before Bloodborne.
So this is an interesting thing, and like it maybe comes down to like the slower, more deliberate pace of Dark Souls 1 versus the quicker stuff in Bloodborne, and this is certainly
quick thing. Sorry to interrupt,
go for it.
But quick, because this is why we're having Adam on. So look at the crown, and then when you get the name, because at this point you've only been fighting
King of the Storm.
King of the Storm. You don't have like a name to give you any sort of context, but you see the crown. The outfit is a little different, but similar. And then you see that he absorbs the soul of the dragon. And then I guess this is happening a little late for
I'm
Adam.
Still watching fog blow past at the moment.
You get the Nameless King.
Yeah.
So do you hate this?
So this is something, whereas if I was seeing this, having come right out of Dark Souls 1 and like not done any like lore video diving on YouTube and not, like played Dark Souls 2 and seen the old Dragon Slayer, and people have forgotten. This might have landed for me. A little bit more, but I would still be pretty confused by it.
Yeah.
And that wouldn't necessarily have to be a bad confusion. And this is all theoretical because that isn't how I experienced, learning about this enemy in this fight. Mm-hmm. But like, I can see thinking it was cool. As far as I know, there isn't a lot to be learned about this guy. You maybe get something from like a description from his soul once you beat him. I am running up against the limits of my remembered knowledge from the last time I did watch this take place. But the revelation that this boss serves to say, "No, you idiots, Solaire wasn't Gwyn's son," and very little else. It's still kind of probably put me off.
So how do you? So I'm curious about why does it seem so transgressive to you that it's like, "No, you idiots"? I'm curious about that because
this guy doesn't have a story.
Okay. Because there is a lot about him in item description.
Okay.
But you definitely don't get the same sort of like quest context that you get for Solaire, who you interact with from almost the beginning of the game till the end.
And there's no indication that this guy is coming up or that he even exists. Right? He kind of is just like here. I'm in a dragon place, so there could be a dragon guy here is fine enough, but he doesn't have any place in this broader world, as far as I'm aware. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Oof.
Yeah, well, I mean, so for me, the way it played, and whether the game earns this or whether this was me doing the work that the game should have been doing, that's the interesting question. But for me, the fact that we're in a dragon place and that it's this guy was like an interesting misdirect, because like the fundamental thing about the war mentioned in the first game is that Seath was a turncoat. It was the gods versus the dragons.
Right.
So what exactly was Gwyn's lost son's betrayal that made all the statues of him get torn down? Well, it turns out he went to go live with the dragons, and what does that mean? Did he did he conquer them? Did he make peace with them? Like I think the item descriptions make it clear that he sort of like atoned for his part in the war and became a dragon turncoat, right? So like he does have a story. It's all happening at the margins, but that's maybe par for the course for these guys.
I mean, and I was going to say that's one of the reasons that it appeals to me. Like for me, obviously it's sort of hindsight because this is an optional area. I mean, you have to find that gesture. You have to kind of put the pieces together of where to use it. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in the game that like guides you here. So in that sense, like it doesn't feel as to me as like transgressive as fuck you for thinking whatever you wanted. I mean, like I think like kind of everything else that we've been talking about, it's just about a certain way in which your sensibilities either appreciate or don't like the things that they've done here. And in that case, I like it just because, like I said, it's sort of hidden. It's there for you to discover if you want. I'm assuming that someone coming into this, whether they played the first game or not, might not necessarily find this place right away or even in their first playthrough. So yeah, I mean.
Yeah, and so yeah, it's not like I tried to disclaim when it first came up. Like the sort of interpretation that it's like a deliberate fuck you. Let's see, the Nameless King was once a dragon-slaying god of war before he sacrificed everything to ally himself with the ancient dragons. Like, is a cool premise compared to Seath or Nito or Gwyn. He seems like he kind of comes a little out of nowhere, probably because he's an optional content, right? Like it's not, that doesn't have to be a culpable thing on their part, but bringing in the sort of extra textual knowledge that it puts the lid on the coffin of one of the sort of best supported and best loved fan theories about a mascot character from the first game. It feels unsatisfying, right? I liked that story better than I like this story, I guess is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And that's totally fair. And that happens, I think, a lot, especially when it comes to the issue of like, doing sequels in any medium.
Sure.
Exactly. Anytime you give an answer, you run the risk that the answer someone had in their head, or even just the negative space of not having an answer, was more interesting in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so again, like, it's perfectly like reasonable and indeed to be expected that, you know, there are going to be people for whom that story does land, even if it didn't for me. But I guess, you know, if I had to summarize my thoughts, right, Dark Souls 2 felt to me like an elaboration on the ideas of Dark Souls 1, while mostly leaving its actual narrative alone.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dark Souls 3 feels mostly subtractive to Dark Souls 1. You know, it sort of strips away mechanics and you know, gameplay things that I liked, which again, totally subjective. But then in a narrative sense, it is a little bit scattershot in terms of like what it's going to answer, what it's going to not, you know, and how satisfying those answers ultimately are when it chooses to provide them. It didn't leave me a feeling, and of course I know, like, you know, this kind of project, this kind of budget, this kind of passion, everything was purposeful, but it didn't end up feeling super purposeful to me in the same way that Dark Souls 1 felt very purposeful. So yeah, I guess that's as close to a thesis statement as I've got.
I got that.
No, and I like it. That's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because I always love being able to be in dialogue with like point of views that I disagree with, when we're coming from a perspective of like, you know, mutual understanding. It's like, oh, you liked this thing, I didn't like this thing, and that's okay. But it's interesting to pull apart why, right? Especially because like, you know, so much of, as Drew and I talk about sometimes when we're veering into any sort of pop culture medium, it's like people take real umbrage with the idea that like, if you don't like the thing I like, it means it's an attack on me, right? And my values. And I think it's actually it's the opposite of that. It's that it's more valuable to understand why people do or don't like something, what resonates, what doesn't, because in some ways it's, to me, more interesting to understand that like for a lot of the same reasons you're saying you didn't like this game, or you felt like it was in its execution sort of not purposeful, I feel like it was very purposeful. And you know, it's fun to work with the same I guess tools, for sure, but arrive at different conclusions. And especially because our perspectives are different, because I played this game first and then went back to Dark Souls 1. So, you know, I make fun of, as I think a lot of people do, I make fun of the whole, like, you know, bad situation and then, you know, a black screen to like 2 weeks earlier. But that was sort of the weird way in which I approached these games. And, you know, playing this one actually gave me a much deeper appreciation for one and for all the stuff they did and how the game, you know, felt harder in a different way. It's like it was a more simplified, stripped down version of this game, which in a way almost, you know, is to your point that, you know, you feel like this detracts from a narrative, but also replaces and adds in a lot of mechanical ways that you felt like were unnecessary. So yeah, we're getting to the end of this, and I guess I just wanted to say I really appreciate your perspective, and it's been you know, super fun to be able to talk with someone who plays these games, appreciates them and the medium, and then you know, just peel apart the different parts of what make it great and what make it not so great.
For sure, I enjoyed the heck
even
out of
bad.
It. And I find it really valuable to hear a positive perspective, because I definitely went into Dark Souls 3 really wanting and even expecting to like it. And especially knowing that Dark Souls 2 didn't grab me right away, and I thought I was, you know, kind of in for a slug with that, and then it ended up being kind of my favorite. I thought something similar was going to happen here, and then I had to eventually admit that it kind of wasn't. And so it's really been fun and interesting to diagnose kind of like exactly where it deviated. Another summative statement, I think, just occurred to me, that Dark Souls 1 felt more like an RPG to me, which is a kind of game that I just gravitate toward more than like a character action game, which Dark Souls 3 feels a lot more like to me.
Yeah, and I would definitely.
They both have elements of both, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, like Dark Souls 3, not in terms of scope, but just in terms of gameplay, would be like, I mean, it's a narrower margin, because there's only 3 games as opposed to like 17 in Zelda. But like
right.
three comparing mechanics, at least 3 is like the sort of Breath of the Wild versus, you know, Dark Souls 1 being like the original Zelda proper. They're very different games. You recognize the different elements, but if you approach like one the way you're approaching you know, Breath of the Wild, where you have all of these different tools and all of these different ways to play, and it's much more like action oriented. The camera's everywhere. You're dealing with lots of different things at once. Whereas like, you know, Zelda 1, you have to kind of approach each thing a little bit at a time,
Right,
and in a much more cleaned up way, graphics notwithstanding. Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily had a point. I was just making a comparison.
Completely. And it's that thing of like things that are hard because the game designers wanted to make it hard versus things that are hard because of jank, right? And like Dark Souls 1 and Zelda 1 have a ton of both.
Yeah.
Good jank.
I do also just like comparing Dark Souls to Zelda because the thing that Drew said that got me to give Dark Souls 1 a fighting chance was that it reminded him of early Zelda games. Not in the way that it played, but in the way that it felt.
Yeah.
And I found that to be true then, and sort of not so much in 2 and even less so in 3.
I might have even said to you the combat is so deliberate it's almost turn-based, and you were like,
yes,
I'm skeptical.
Definitely took that to heart and have used that description, I think, today in our conversation. So
and 2 definitely feels that way, and I'm starting to approach it more that way. Like, turn-based. Like, I can't just heal while I'm backing away from an enemy. I have to like yeet out, to call a little callback there, and then reapproach the situation with my next turn.
Yeah, you kind of have to be very, very deliberate in a way that really worked for me because I am not very good as an execution game player generally, whereas 3 definitely demands that kind of control expertise that I have always lacked.
Yeah, at least I think you might be able to think of the faster ones, the faster entries in the series, almost in that same modular way because you're really good at fighting games. So like that idea of like controlling
I had not
space
considered
and
that,
making those decisions really quickly probably comes more naturally to you.
I hadn't drawn that connection, but that's actually a really good point.
Yeah, this has definitely been lovely and a great conversation.
Yeah. Did we want to end with any sort of?
I will say we traditionally end on a maniacal laugh. This being a Dark Souls.
Oh, you have given me a gift this day.
So yeah, I mean, I think if you wouldn't mind doing the honors.
Oh yeah, that sounds good.
Oh boy, maniacal laugh, huh?
Quiet though, understated.
Yeah, of course.